talk a little bit about IP and a case study that Texas A&M is going through now on switching on a 3-year plan to a full ST2110 facility. So to start it off, I'm Janosky. Is anybody raise their hand that's done anything IP in the room? Rule, deal. So I know everything is super easy. So anybody who raised their hand, here's 4 visors. Courtesy of the up-and-coming defending national champions, Georgia and Alabama, we're coming from you. We got a coach named Jimbo. He's great. But please grab a visor. We appreciate you staying around. So I'm the director of technology at 12 Man Productions, and I came to Texas A&M about 3.5 years ago. When we came, we were starting like the ACC, which was the first panel that was up here. I was not part of the build, but I inherited what we decided to go with. That was 2015. In 2015, I heard of a thing called IP. I was the old curmudgeon, the old engineer. I know everybody has them. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you are the old curmudgeon. The zombie apocalypse hasn't come in, and we do not need analog DAs anymore. So 2015, I was a naysayer. I said it'll take 10 years for IP to happen. I was totally against it. I had a couple consultants come in. I told them that they were full of, you know what, and this will never happen. I'll be the last guy that dies with a baseband router. Come 5 years down the line, 2018, I get called to a meeting, and we have to do a 5-year budget out. And I start looking, and we're 5 years old, and they tell me, all right, we don't want to write one big check when things break, so you got a plan. So I get scared and start thinking, like, all right, what am I going to do? So start trying to buy drinks for people and see what they're doing and going to stadiums and all the other different things. And I start seeing this IP work. And I start looking at it, and I start asking them, like, hey, where's all your DAs at? Like, where do you put the gateway at? What's the gateway cost? Where's your little router for your replay panels? And start digging in, and that all went away. So I started looking, you know, oh, well, this got to be just absolutely astronomical cost. And start looking into it. Holy cow. You know, it's maybe an upfront cost, but you know, on the back end, I'm not going to spend nearly as what I'm going to do when somebody from, I saw the Sun Belt here, somebody from the SEC conference, when the higher ups doesn't want to send a truck anymore to your venue, and ESPN tells you you got those 4 letters on your shirt and you're ready to carry the flag. So, you know, that happens, and that's the real life. So about 6-7 months ago, we said, all right, we're going to do this IP thing. And we had 2 options. Number 1 was, do we go from the heart and then rip it out and then go out? Or do we go from the arms and then walk in? So get rid of my router or buy a whole bunch of gateways and IP and go. So like any other engineer, I think I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I decide, you know what, we're going to do an edit bay on an island. And you know what, we ain't going to do IP, we're going to do VDI and virtualization. Well, we'll just say that I was about 3 or 4 weeks from being promoted to spectator, is what I say, because my CFO was not happy once I started showing him the numbers. So I kind of backtracked and went back, looked at some projects. We just built a track stadium, and I started saying, all right, well, how can we better transport these signals? We're a centralized controller, and we have 48 single-mode fibers to all of our venues. And I started talking with Cassidy, who I used to come, if some people know me, I used to work in Washington, D.C. Cassidy lives in D.C. So I figured, this guy's easy. I know D.C. I'll be able to buy him a couple beers. He'll easily take them, give me all the secrets. So we end up talking, and he starts showing me these SMPs. Yep. And we go to the SMPs and look, and he starts talking and says, you know, hey, these are 16 by 16 and 32 bidirectional, and it's only over 100 gig fiber and everything's, and I'm like, oh man. I mean, I know how to put an IP address in, but that's about it.
I have to tell you guys, he was very critical and skeptical of everything I said the first time we talked. Yeah. So it's very interesting to watch this process evolve. I'm a system designer for Imagine Communications, and just so you guys know, I started pulling cable at college football games. So I've kind of seen end to end how these systems work and what the operational goals are of the systems. So I knew a little bit about what Jesse was trying to do, but he didn't let me help him design a system either, by the way. So I'm here to back him up on what the SNP can do, but what he's doing over there is very interesting, and it's good for him to tell you.
Yeah. So what Cassidy is I'm about as stubborn as a mule. We hired a gentleman named Zach Bacon as an engineer, and it was the first person that we hired that was an IT centric. And I read all the articles, and it said, hire IT people because the broadcast engineers won't know, and they can't learn, and I'm hogwash. So I end up buying these, and then I start calling around, and they said, okay, yeah, you got to use this Arista, and you got to use this QSFP, and you got to use all these technical terms that I had no clue about, and it was like a roadmap. Like, is there only one way? I thought this was supposed to be scalable and redundant. So we started looking around, and I'm like, hey, well, I'm going to go Cisco. And I got told about 15 different people don't do Cisco, and I just went and bought it. I took a chance, and I bought it, and at NAB this last year, I talked to Cassidy. Cassidy introduced me to Cisco, and they were full back board, full great with us. We implemented it. We've used it for 4 events. We had a truck that pulled up, and the length limits were too long. So normal, what do? You go out and you buy like a Blackmagic router for $300 on B&H, and you overnight it, and you start running cables, and it looks like a rat's nest, and you just kind of eat it, and you hope that the credit card, when you submit the expense report, they don't yell at you. But we had this SMP, and we said, all right, we're going to go all in. And Cassidy was 100% in. Cisco was 100% in. We ended up getting it up and running, and we went from...
How many days was that, by the way, that we had to get it running?
So we had 2 days, 2 solid. 2 solid.
Went IP in 2 days.
We went IP in 2 days. We went IP and Dante in 2 days. We definitely try to push the limit, but I mean the limit worked, and I didn't have to buy a single DA. I didn't have to worry about resolution. I was able to not only transmit all my replays, I was able to transmit the replays and transmit to our monitors as well. So our play-by-play, our color, where I normally would have to go through what we call I heard a lot of people call fly pack, we call it a venue kit, was about $160,000. I was able to outfit 4 venues instead of that $160,000 with 4 SMPs and 4 Yamaha Dante consoles, 32 in and 32 out. I probably got a good deal because nobody else is doing it, hint, hint. But it worked. And
but real quick on that note, talk a little bit about how the density on your usage of the fiber changed. So not only were you going further without the DAs, but you're also putting more signals on the glass.
Yeah. So our normal kit's an 8x1 multi-dyne. We're going over 4 fibers. Now we're going over 2 fibers. Now we tripled maybe our population. Not to get too technical, because I said I'd cut Cassidy off if he did, but we could do 16 by 16, 16 in, 16 out. If we don't need a 16 in, 16 out, which is kind of a little issue, and I'm not trying to just push everybody and say it's all bunnies and rainbows, but if I only need 4 ins, I can use 4 ins on the SMPs, and then I can do 28 outs. Oh. And we were able to scale it. Now we have a little issue with, how do you wire up a normal patch bay like that? Because you're going to have to use baseband for a while. But I will tell you, it was night and day, and we did 4 home baseball games. And when we got the signals, as I said, the eye pattern looked like just a mush of green. We put it into our SMP. We were able to transmit. We're a centralized control room, so our control room's 2.5 miles from the venue. It reclocked them, took that format, distributed them for us, and we were able to pull from 2 different locations, Kyle Field to feed all of our multi-viewers, and we were also to feed, as I said, the color and the play-by-plays.
How long is the longest run you guys have done for these events?
So I would say the longest run that we did, we just tested outdoor track, which I think is probably like a 3-mile run. That was over 4 fibers. So those 4 fibers are going now. The issue we're having now is, you know, as I said, I'll be full disclosure, we're running this on a closed network with the SMPs, and now we're starting to migrate into Dante. And we had a full Dante deployment with the old Cisco SG350s, and we're getting rid of those, and we're moving them into our platform of our Cisco 10 gig 93 180s. So it's trying, but if you're in the market for looking at different technologies, whether I talked with somebody from Clarion, Pennsylvania today, to Georgia, Alabama, SEC, the ACC schools, you don't want to be the last person to buy the baseband router. I mean, it's scary. It's definitely a new skill set. You will definitely have to redo your thinking, but I'll tell you what, if you like putting your feet up on the table and just relaxing and not running around with a whole trash bin full of DAs or up-down crosses, or, you know, resetting frame sync cards inside your rack, definitely look at it. And I am 100%, if anybody has any questions, if anybody ever wants to come to Texas A&M, we love having people. I mean, we really do. We will open the doors to anybody, no matter how big, small, whether you're employed by a university, whether you are just eager, because that's what this business is about. You know, last year, Rick Dagby, who I've never met other than talking by the phone, he said it eloquently. Look, you can make a heck of a lot of money in sales, but you can't get the thrill from what we're able to do on a daily basis. I mean, we have fun. That's why we're in the business, and we're all just one big group that's trying to help each other. The names always stay the same on the business cards, but sometimes the companies change. So please, you know, turn next to somebody, talk to them, say where you're from, tell them about your use case, look at different options. There's somebody else that can help you. And I guess the 2 last things I have, and I'm sorry, I don't talk a lot, so. But the 2 last things is, you know, I hear a lot of people talk about budgets, and, you know, that's a real thing. Like, we all have budgets. But we just did a landmark thing that ESPN allowed us to do. And we did, and I see some of them looking at me, we did the SEC Now studio from right field in our new softball facility. And it brought a hell of a lot of revenue into our department. And it allowed us to do this. And the only reason why we were able to do that, because when they come to you and they say, hey, look, it's not going to be a big deal. Me and Doug is in the back talked about it. Hey, we're going to just bring a stage. We'll bring the generator. It's 3 cameras, 4 mics, not a big deal. Then you realize you're out there for 15-hour days, 7 days straight, and then you got to put up their EMPS system, and then it just starts going on you. You know, if we didn't look in the future, we would have never been able to do that. And when we did it, it brought in and it paid for itself. One show paid for every single thing that we did. And that's the goal. Don't look at it, I know it's easy to say, don't look at it as a financial. Look at it as what's your end goal. Map a plan. And don't be afraid to fail. I've failed many times in my life. Don't be afraid to fail.
So I'm not going to let you stop talking just yet, though, because what are you guys looking to do next? What can you say about the future of that system?
Okay, so as I said, I'm not brash to give up. So we are in the middle of testing some VDI again. We're pushing. We're going to try to do some CG VDI. We're going to also try to do. We're doing transport, and I only have one currently right now, and that's Imagine, that is up and running and working. But know that the vendor is not driving the conversation as much as the end user can. So don't wait for the vendor to come to you and say, I have this new toy. Go to them. Go out to the booth. Go out to Imagine's booth. Go out to Ross's booth. Go out to Evert's booth. Go out to Image Video's booth. Go out to all of them and say what you want to do. They want to be at the top of the curve. They want to help you. They want to give you the support, like Cisco, which everybody thought wouldn't. to be successful. Because if you're successful, they're successful. And in the next 5 years, this whole room's going to change. It is going to be completely different. It is going to be completely different on how we work, what the workflow is, who's producing what. SEC started 4 years, Doug? 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I think we did like 13 events. I heard Virginia say 300, which I think is full of malarkey, but for whoever's from Virginia. Video boards and broadcast don't count as 2 shows, that's 1. So it's going to change. It's going to be there, and you're going to drive the conversation. SMPTE, who does the standards, they have Cisco classes that I'm taking right now. Go out, talk to them. I heard from other people, there's scholarships to go out to different conferences and explore these. Reach out to the NBCs, reach out to the Imagines, reach out to the ESPNs. They want you to get better. They really do. You're going to hate them, and you got to tell them to go pound sand sometimes. But they are there to make you better, because if you're better, their jobs are easier.
Yep. And without getting too technical, I'll just throw in there that I'm a strong supporter of SMPTE and the standards. And the thing that's cool about the 2110 standard from that standpoint is that you can have that interop between multiple vendors. So whether you want to add something from Ross or Grass or Evertz or Imagine at some point a year from now, it's still going to be compliant and get along with that 2110 format. From a production standpoint, for anyone that doesn't know yet, 2110 is the resolution limitation now is something like 32K by 32K.
All right, that's way too technical.
So the point is, we'll see 2110 driving ribbon boards where it's just one image for the entire ribbon. Or you could do a sphere, you could do anything, because it's actually resolution agnostic.
Yeah.
And it's also fully demuxed and then some. You have the audio and the video separate, but you also have the data like the closed captioning or the HDR information separate. So what that means to a production team is more flexibility than you ever had, even aside from the distance that you can now run without amplification and the density that you get out of your fiber. So it's a very cool tool.
Yeah, it is just as he said, the interop. As I said, you drive the conversation. I'll tell you a little bit about just what we're doing right now. So the Imagine SMPs are up and running. We have 4 of them. We have 4 of them that we share between different venues. It's not CWDM where you have to have a point-to-point and it's a transmit receive. You can send one signal to 3 different venues if you really need to. Through all it is a multicasting address, and that's way too technical for most people. But you can do so much, and we have right now the Cisco switches are up with the Imagine SNPs. Currently, we are looking at our edit bays. We're going to do 10 gig transport through AJA cards. Our PTP is our 5601 Evertz master clock. So we're already doing the interop, and that standards is being driven by everybody in the room. I mean, when people said HD years ago, and now I sound like an old curmudgeon, everybody was like, oh, no, SD's where it's at. I mean, you can only go 150 feet. That sucks. But that's it. I mean, we're going to do it, and we're going to push for everybody to have a IEEE or SMPTE's ST2110 standard where we can use every single manufacturer and mix and match. So,
what about dropping in some AES67 into your 2110 network? Have you guys started to do that yet?
I have not, and I am not looking forward to it. Okay. As I said, we went full Dante, and as I told you, I'd make a lot of mistakes. We went full Dante, and now I have to backtrack, and now I have to tell my CFO that now I have to, change everything out. So, I'm just hoping that Autonative, you're in the house. ST2110, hurry up, please.